Vice President of Operations and Chief Counsel for the Housing Authority of New Orleans, a native New Orleanian, a fellow New Orleans Easterner. Please join me in welcoming our moderator, the Honorable Keith Valenti.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. To our legislators and our council members for being here and participating in this important conversation. So as I stated, I'm Keith, I will be moderating our this is not a debate. And then also, we want to make sure that each panelist has an opportunity to speak. So we do have a timekeeper, Ms. Bernard here. So she'll run us to let us know the record. And if you don't wrap it up, I'm going to apologize. Everybody, so please don't take it personally. I'll be happy to mark that. And then at the beginning of each question, I'll tell you about how much time you're allotted for responses. And I'm asking you to please be mindful of the time so that we can cover all of the topics we have tonight. Our goal is to have a candid conversation where our panelists can speak openly, respond to questions, and then help the community better understand what happened at the Capitol and what it means moving forward. So we are going to begin. So to help the audience get grounded this evening, I'm going to ask each of the panelists to briefly introduce yourself, your title, your role, what committees you serve on in your respective spaces, and also why that committee work matters to the city of New Orleans. And so we're going to start this evening with Senator Harris. If you would introduce yourself and let us know what committees and why that's important.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to first thank everybody for coming out today. My name is Jerry Harris. I represent Senate District 4. I represent Senate District 4 here in the city of New Orleans. Committees that I sit on, Senate Finance, which is responsible for the funding of the state. So we take care of the executive branch, the legislative branch, as well as the judicial. I also sit on something called Senate Commerce. Why is Senate Commerce so important? We regulate banking, we regulate I think from a lawyer standpoint, one of the things that's really standing out is tourism. Tourism goes through commerce. Contrary to popular belief, we have some that have been saying that New Orleans is not that important and that tourism is not that important. There was a Moody's report that was done last time the state bond rate went up in 2021. And that Moody's report, and I'll paraphrase, that Moody's report stated that Louisiana is no longer a oil and gas state because of the tourism state. And Louisiana goes as New Orleans. That's what the people that upped our bond rate stated about New Orleans. I also sit on the committee called Judiciary Committee. We have three different committees, A, B, and C. I sit on the Judiciary, I'm the vice chair of the committee. Why is that? We regulate alcohol, we regulate gambling. From my district standpoint, as we know, I have a fairground. We also regulate racing. So just on the fairgrounds, that's alcohol, that's gambling, and that's also just horse racing. That's a very important committee as it relates to the city of New Orleans. My district, I have the most bars, the most restaurants in my district than any other. So it's definitely important. Last I'll say this, there's a committee called the Legislative Audit Advisory. Why is that important? Anybody that receives money from the city can have to do an audit, and that comes from our.
Thank you. So Bill, you have about 1 minute on the introduction.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming out. My name is Matthew Willard. I'm council member at large, former state representative. The committee structure on the city council is different from the legislature. I chair community development and economic development. I also serve on the budget committee. I serve on public works committee, transportation, climate change, utilities. So there's enough. We kind of serve on all committees except for 2. I'll talk about everything else later on.
All right.
Thank you. And Senator Bartholomew.
I'm Sidney Bartholomew, State Senator for District 3, and I sit on Commerce, along with Senator Harris, and Jude B, along with Senator Harris, kind of went over what how those impact the city of New Orleans. I also sit on retirement and education, and I would say out of those two, education is probably going to be the most significant as it relates to the city of New Orleans. We have, an emergence of charter school system. We have issues related to the locally run schools. So those come before our committee, any and everything related to education and care of our children in the city of New Orleans and around the state comes before education. So along with community and commerce, I would say that we can kind of stick up the most retirement covered by the city beneficiary.
And
JP Morale, Councilor at Large. I am currently the council president for 5 months met. Ready. I chair the utilities committee. For both energy and development. As well as the governmental affairs committee, where we do all of the charter amendments as well as all of the confirmations of all mayoral appointees, as well as any other appointees that we have by ordinance or statute. That's a very important committee. I know that with the charter amendment that was passed by the city of New Orleans, we restructured that to require confirmation hearings for a host of other city elected officials. And that has led to more community input when a person is appointed. Prior to the charter amendment, mayors were able to appoint people with no input by the public, no oversight by the public. You would just wake up one day and someone would be the head of the department. With the vote that you guys did, now when someone is selected the head of the department, they actually go through a confirmation process, and that really has changed the tenor of public service, because it reminds that person who's going through this process, they serve the public, not necessarily. So I'm a former state senator, former representative. I know and appreciate the work of the legislators who are up here, especially during tough times, and look forward to this conversation.
Representative Kemp.
Good evening, everybody. How y'all doing? I am State Representative Sean Minna. I represent 3. I'm a proud son of this city, grew up in the 5th Ward, and proud to represent that area to this day. I serve on the Commerce Committee, Insurance Committee, and Labor Committee. Probably the two most important ones for our city is, of course, insurance, because that's kicking everybody in the behind right now, because those prices are really damn near pricing people out of their houses. And we got to make sure that we're looking after our senior citizens, because look, you're living on fixed income, so we need to make sure that it's right in hand. And the most important committee that I think I serve on is Commerce. Like, let's keep it real. If you don't have money, you ain't got nothing in this society. So we got to make sure that we're attracting good paying jobs and industries into this city so that our children have profitable lives going forward. So proud to be here, proud to be a representative, and looking forward to having a good conversation. Thank y'all.
And Councilman Hughes.
First, Judge, let me thank you, Judge Landon, for moderating the divine chance. Only thank you for the leadership of being such a gracious host. So let me thank all of us to be in touch with that. For hosting this very important conversation. I'm Jason Hughes. I have the honor of serving as New Orleans City Councilman for District E, where the E stands for excellence. I currently serve on every committee with the exception of community development. I don't serve on climate change and sustainability. And ironically, even though I was the vice chair of the powerful appropriations committee, I don't serve on the budget. But that's okay, because I'm still going to be deep in the weeds as we work our way through this budget process. But I do have the honor of chair committee on and the committee on sanitation. Public works has been a heavy lift, but we're moving along. Really grateful to my partners, JP Morale and Matthew, but have been locked in arms with me in moving District E forward and moving our infrastructure throughout the city forward, but particularly in District E. When we've been having widespread power outages, we mobilized entity. When we've been having water main breaks, we have mobilized and held sewage and water for the county. So I'll have more to say later, but I pledged as a candidate, I would hit that ground running, no training wheels needed with me. And I've made good on that promise.
Yeah, and I just had a hard time stopping my council back, so. And Representative Marbury.
Good evening, good evening. I am Ken Murray, State Representative District 97, which is where we're sitting right now. Just recently elected a few months ago. I am currently sitting on transportation, municipal, and the insurance committee. Transportation, includes highways, public works, so that's our levees, railroads, bridges, all those types of things, as well as insurance, kind of self-explanatory, health insurance, car insurance, property insurance. They're working to lower that insurance for us while keeping some consumer protection there. I'm also on municipal, that is our mostly local affairs. I'm also the acting vice chair of Legislative Black Caucus.
Thank you, and Representative Henry.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming out. Thank everyone for having us tonight. Daniel Henry, State Representative, District 100, New Orleans East. I serve on actually the identical committees with Representative Murray, Transportation, Highways, and Public Works. As he said, we deal with levees, roads, bridges. I will tell you that that is a heavy lift right now during hurricane season because evacuation routes can be impeded if we don't have our bridges and roads operable. So that is a really important committee, but especially right now, we get a lot of consideration and we try to push as many projects through as quickly as possible so that hurricanes and natural disasters do come, we can get out safely. Insurance, again, when I campaigned, that was a major issue. For every 10 doors I knocked on, 8 was about homeowners insurance. Powerful committee. We had a lot of work to do in that committee in terms of working to get homeowners rates under control. And everybody in this panel, and I sit with my colleagues that work diligently to address homeowners insurance issues as well. And then finally, as Representative Murray said, municipal, appropriate, and cultural affairs. We do have some economic development issues we touched on. Primarily, it's local municipal issues, naming roads sometimes, naming parks, but there's some opportunities for us to leverage that benefit of New Orleans and New Orleans East as well. But again, thank you all for coming. Happy to be here and look forward to a really, really good conversation tonight.
Thank you. And so now we're going to shift gears a little bit, and we appreciate the introduction. And now that we know what committees you serve on, these first questions are really just to give us an idea of how the committee works and how the legislature works, right? And so for those of us, it's kind of a little civics 101, just to get us grounded as we get into the main topics. So I'm going to ask Senator Harris, if you could briefly explain to us the role of legislative leadership, such as the Speaker of the House, the Senate President, and how those committee decisions and assignments are made. And then I will pivot to our council members for some opinions.
As it relates to Senate President, Speaker, House Speaker of the Senate. The Senate President is the person that actually runs it. So your Senate President controls how the flow of the Senate goes. Your Senate President is also the person that's responsible for your committee assignments. He determines who's going to be president, who's going to be the chairman, who's going to be vice chairman, other things. So your Senate President is somebody that's really important. So when you file your bills, the Senate President determines which bills get heard first, which order that we'll have the bills that are heard. And so from the Senate side, the President is definitely somebody that's very important. That is a person, and I can say it as it relates to this President Cameron, he's the person that protects the Senate. So when things seem to be going awry between the Senate and the governor, he's the buffer. And I can tell you, he's been a very great buffer. So that's our Senate President.
And then I'll ask Senator Bartholomew if you could talk to us briefly about bill referrals and how those bills, get floor action, and then how do they move forward to address the priorities of New Orleans?
So piggyback off what Senator Harris said, the Senate President will determine a referral bill to which committee. It's typically, I would say that 90% of the time it's going to fall within a committee that typically gives that sort of situation. We would then hear the bill in committee that it will either move favorably without a vote to be heard on the Senate floor, or there will be a vote, someone will object, and there will be a vote on that particular bill. It will either pass or not through committee to then be voted on the Senate floor. Once it's made its way through that process, we hear it on the floor. Again, it's open for Well, let me take a quick step back and say that in the committee hearing, that's the best opportunity for the public's voice to be heard. So if there's a particular issue that you're following, you certainly want to come up to the Capitol when it's assigned to committee and when it's to be heard in committee. That's your opportunity to voice your objection or support for a bill, whatever you fall on that bill. That influences often the committee's decision on how to move that bill. Once it reaches the floor, you won't have that same opportunity. You would have to speak directly with senators that will cast their vote on that bill. And directly, you won't have the opportunity to be heard in front of, and be on the record, which is also what happens in the committee process. So that's important to keep in mind, but you still have the opportunity to reach out to, senators or any legislators that's on the outside, representatives and voice your opinion about a particular bill before the vote is cast. But once it's heard on the Senate floor, the vote will be cast. It will pass or fail. If it passes, then we'll go to the House for the same process and then come back to the Senate. If it originated in the Senate, it'll come back to the Senate for concurrence. And then the same process, basically, I can let our representatives speak to their process, but it's a similar process that originates on the House.
And Representative Mena, if you can address that, and then I do have a follow-up for our representatives as well. And it's that many of us only hear about the legislature during session, right? And we all know that there's a lot of work that happens before and after every session. So if you could talk to us a little bit too about the type of work that you're doing when the legislature is not in session and how that's important to the city.
Yes, thank you so much for the question. To kind of piggyback on what the senators were saying, we have to understand as voters that there's a hierarchy to everything. Even though there's 105 of us on the House side, there's still a hierarchy to this legislative game. So you got the speaker, then right under that, we have the committee chairman and women. So they're the ones who set the agenda and who can even determine if your bill is even going to be heard. So the thing is, when we have people in our delegation that can come either chairman or vice chairman, I think that's very important and vital to the needs of the city. So we got to make sure that we're getting good folks in and that can actually rise up to the occasion when leadership is needed. As far as what we're doing outside of session, right? The main thing is meeting with constituents, going to neighborhood associations. I'm always at Mines monthly, just giving them updates about what's going on, even in the interim session, and just kind of talking to residents and trying to figure out what bills I will be thinking about filing for the next upcoming session. So it really doesn't stop. I mean, they're participating in back to school drives, like just making sure that you're visible and present in the community. So they call it a part-time job, but you're working all the time. So I truly I commend everybody that's up here that's elected official, because it truly is a sacrifice.
And Representative Murray, would you like to talk to us a little bit about what you're doing with the legislature is not in session and how that work helps to drive the priorities of the work?
So even when we're not in session, there are committee meetings. Prime example, this morning, I sat in for Representative Freeman in our legislative joint budget committee in Baton Rouge. So this morning I woke up full suit and tie in committee, voting against the MFP. So it's really never an off season before. So like Representative said, it's always a neighborhood association meetings, always building calls, meeting with people when they see you in the store, tell us our issues. Appreciate that. I can tell you I have a running Apple Notes list of things that I'm considering drafting next year in the session. So it really is no off.
And Representative Henry, thank you.
Thank you. In addition to what Representative said, meeting with constituents, we have the ability through our legislation, if you can't get a bill through that has an immediate impact, you can create a task force. I was blessed to get a task force bill through, very slim margins, to look at economic development opportunities in New Orleans and identify properties that can be put back into commerce to support the work at NASA, the aerospace engineering work, support the work that's coming to Louisiana International Terminal and Violet with port logistics. And this is actually going to be full-time, well, not full-time, but it has to be a lot of hours that go into this task force and we do not get compensated for that. It is time bound. It has to be a report generated by the time we go back to session, and I'll have my two legislative aides working with me at the same time. And it is work, getting people to these meetings, having an agenda, having a report. None of that happens during session, and it has to be done by session and for consideration by the body. So this is a full-time job. And if you do it the right way, you fully engage with your other colleagues and you clearly with your constituents to make sure that you understand their needs. This is something that is a 24/7 opportunity to lead and serve the public.
Thank you, and we appreciate all of your service. I want to shift the conversation a little bit in that same vein to our city leaders. And so, Councilman Willard, and well, to all of our councilmen, and I have a few follow-ups, so y'all don't have to repeat the same thing, so I'll kind of ask a deviation to each one of you. But if you can explain to us the role of the city council leadership, including the council president and the council members at large, and how committee assignments and leadership roles affect each.
I actually have a story that I'll give to tie in. So similar to the legislature, the city council has a president and a vice president. Like JP was saying, we rotate every year. So starting next year, I'll be the president and he'll be the vice president. But we also work together. So there's been meetings that I've run from the council perspective, but one of the things that the council president does is sign contracts over a certain value, orchestrates the committee assignments and the seating chart at the beginning of the term. It's like pros and cons with those at large positions. The pro is, we don't get all of the district related inquiries and requests for help. But the con is we still get those requests for help and inquiries for unrelated subjects. So it's actually a little tricky for us because I don't want to step on Jason's toes, right? And so if somebody from District E reaches out to my office, we go check in with Jason's office and say, hey, do you want us to handle this? Are you working on this? Do you need help on this? So we're working really collaboratively right now. As far as priorities go, we were blessed to have some interns from Youth Force NOLA with us this summer. And one of mine, today was their last day, they were exceptional students. One of my interns from Carver High School said she was born in the Lower Ninth Ward and grew up there for most of her life. She doesn't live there anymore. And she said, I hear a lot of people, and I used to think this way too, that, we had all these vacant and blighted lots in the Lower Ninth Ward and nobody cared about it. And she said, but then I came in and started interning in your office and y'all are having meetings about this topic like every week. And she was like, so this experience just opened my eyes up to, and I said, that is why it's so important that you select your elected officials carefully. Make sure that they actually are going to prioritize your interests, because that makes or breaks the case. If you want attention on a matter, make sure you elect somebody who's going to pay attention to it.
Thank you. And Councilman Morrell, you can expand on that, but I'd also like to add for you to address with us, how does the council work with the mayor and the administration to advance priorities and turn policy decisions into action?
Well, I have a very unique experience with mayors. I think that in an ideal world, a mayor and a council respect each other, understand their charter roles, and work to complement each other. Having served under two mayors, I can say under one mayor that didn't work out so well. Under this mayor, it's been very, very different. I think I'm jealous of Jason and of Matthew because they're seeing a mayor who has a healthy respect for the council, the core member, and tries to include us in everything. But there's so many heavy lifts in the city, you cannot do them unless both sides are working together. What I often tell people about mayors in general, in my opinion of mayors, is mayors are leaders, but they have to have a place they want to go. And if a mayor is leading, has a place they want to go, part of the council role is to help them get there. When you talk about how important it is to elect people, you have to elect leaders with vision, because if they don't have a place they want to go, they will literally go nowhere. And I think when you look at the ebbs and flows in the history of the city of New Orleans, we all know which mayors had visions and had something they wanted to achieve and fought to achieve it, and mayors that kind of just were there. And so this experience has been very different. We came into a budget in crisis. We're still in crisis. Obviously, with some of the things that have happened in Baton Rouge recently, we are having to make very hard decisions that other cities don't have to make. The decision not to go to bond commission was a very, very tough decision because it's going to require us to balance a budget like repairing a plane in the air. Every other city, cities across the state regularly go to the bond commission for a RAND, which is a gap loan that they repay back to a bank. The fact that we are not able to do that we can't go use our own money to pay a bank back, because the bond commission is kind of in the middle of it, and the politics of the bond commission, that is an undue hardship on us, dealing with our employees, dealing with our responsibilities. And we're gonna make it work regardless, because that's what you want us to do. But it's just kind of unfortunate when you have that breakdown. You have that breakdown at the state and local level where you can't do things that everyone else does. I mean, New Orleans isn't special. We do want to be treated like everybody else. Problem is, historically, we're not. And that's, as much as people say it's special, I can tell you in my 14 years in the legislature, we often just spent most of our time fighting to get what we were due and what we were entitled to, while being told we weren't entitled to. So as far as the council, Matthew hit almost everything on there. The one thing I would add is that the council president in particular is second in line to be the mayor hypothetically, if whatever happens. And we also are the person that oversees the council daily when it comes to parliamentary procedures. We declare like whether something's pertinent or germane or not. The council is a really unique body in that once you appoint the chairman really operates independent of the council president. Other than the actual regular council meeting every week, the chairman all for their subject matter, they are the chairman. So it's very different in the legislature in that the president of the Senate, the Speaker of the House really rides over each of those chairmen and can remove them whenever they want. We pick our committees and our chair with the advice and consent of the council, and the council as a body can change the chairmanship at any point they want to. It just takes a majority vote. So it's an important small body. We have to work together to make everything work. But this year has been very challenging, but very gratifying that I work with a lot of great people.
And Councilman Hughes, feel free to chime in on any of the prior questions, but I also want to ask you specifically as a councilman, what is the importance of working with our state legislators? And also, and you have a unique experience in both, actually. So how is that important? Why is it important? And how does it work to get the New Orleans issues addressed?
Well, thank you, Judge, for that question. You know, I approach that from a very unique perspective. This is now my 23rd year in government. And I've enjoyed the unique experience of working for a governor, a U.S. senator, a mayor, two assistant presidents within higher education, served 3 years as a lobbyist, and have been a member of the House of Representatives and now a member of the City Council. I say all the time when it comes to a municipality, things work best when all three branches of government work together. And so for the city of New Orleans to succeed, we need the city council and the mayor to be effective at their job. We have to work hand in hand with our state legislative delegation, and I'm proud to say that this council and this mayor literally joined at the hip with this delegation. And a special shout out, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge our lead, Jimmy Harris, who has just been a champion during some very challenging times. But he has been that leader up in Baton Rouge that has really been a voice of reason and a voice of effectiveness. And then our congressional delegation, it's important that we work with them as well. But specifically, why it's important for our city to work with our state legislative delegation. Two reasons in particular. Outside of legislative policy, and we had some bills. The greatest example is the comprehensive bill dealing with sewage water that will take effect August 1st. So stay tuned. You'll be reading about some things next week. But capital outlay projects and direct appropriations, so funding for hospitals, funding for roads, funding for bridges, funding for a whole plethora of things in our city. it's our legislative delegation that's on the front lines delivering, in partnership, on behalf of the city.
Thank you. So next, we're gonna get into a little bit of dispelling the myths and false narratives. And so this is just going to be wide open to whoever wants to talk. I'm not gonna call on anybody in particular, so if you want to speak up on the issue, just kind of pick up the mic and let's go. We have 4 minutes for these questions. And so I'm just gonna put it out there and just let's see where it goes. So we know that this was a rough and challenging legislative session for New Orleans. From your perspective, how was New Orleans positioned at the Capitol? Did the delegation have a unified strategy? The community moving forward to be more proactive and better positioned.
I'm so glad you asked that question. But first of all, let me just say very respectfully, people with Facebook degrees and Instagram pages, and all of the political analysts that have come about. Ladies and gentlemen, this delegation that ever was a lifetime achievement. I mean, I don't know what more they could have done under very difficult. Yeah, you can go. I mean, they were united, they had a strategy, they fought, they were that we expected of them and more. And it came back great. Projects for line item detail. That was the cost of them fighting. All of us. I'm going to speak on behalf of all of us in this room. You know what this stat? People who in Orleans Parish alone are on the inactive voters. And so it becomes a little deflating, demeaning when we go fight. Who knows? But we do need people to go vote.
Yes.
So if you want to thank us, if you want. Don't criticize on social media. Vote. Newspaper, start looking at names on this list, start making phone calls. Too much stock in our elected officials. We expect our elected officials to just be saviors. That's not how this works. Want democracy to be stronger. And so I appreciate all the forums, but let me. Now we gotta hit the ground. Now we gotta organize. Now we have to mobilize. And my lines wrapped around the early voting precincts. That's the best way you can reward them. They put into Baton Rouge. Let me just say, voting rights under attack. But I don't blame the Rouge. Not doing our part. We have to do our part in this democracy.
Anybody else on that in particular? Because I've got another one. So let's talk about this. There were several narratives and myths and false narratives that were going around about our delegation, what's happening at the Capitol. Is there any one misunderstanding or false narrative that anybody wants to correct on the record right now to this argument? We want this to be an open, honest forum, so, and educational for all.
Right, so I can talk about custody. First thing I'm talking about is redistricting. As we know, we lost a second minority, but we lost 1 of the 2 minority districts. And I just want to be as straightforward and direct as I possibly can with this. This delegation for that to not happen. However, we knew that the numbers were there for it to happen. Let me be 100% clear. There was a move to get rid of all Democratic districts. They wanted 6 Republican districts. And we had to fight that. Do know that the district that we currently have, that Congressman Carter represents. We went and found a map from back in 2011. That was the map that then Congressman Richmond ran. And we did that map, and we used that map as a precursor to how we do the maps we want to be doing. Why do I say that? And Senator Bartholomew knows this because we had a meeting. There was a move to move the congressional district from New Orleans to Baton Rouge. And that's something that we had to fight. Understand this. There were some within the Democratic Party that wanted to move the seat from New Orleans to Baton Rouge. And Senator Bartholomew was in the meeting, and we stood up. It was like, that will never. Let's be clear. We have never been without representation on a congressional level in New York. So that was something that we had to fight. Get it wrong, but I just wanted to make sure that people knew what exactly happened, because there's been some comments and stuff saying, oh, they didn't do this, they didn't do that, blah, blah, blah. But not only do we have to protect the one seat that we had, but we got to protect the seat to stay in the vote. This is just another hot topic that's been in the news for a while as it relates to say downsizing on the judiciary.
I was getting to that.
Yes. So, a couple of things that we have to understand with that. The first meeting session, myself and a couple of senators set a meeting with the governor. And we met with the second meeting. And in that meeting, he told us, he asked me, like, Jimmy, what you think? I was like, I don't like nothing. He was like, well, we're gonna have to figure something out. I was like, well, we have to figure it out, but I don't like it. And he told me, he said, I just want you to know that I have 26 and 7. Now, everybody up here understands what that means, but I'll explain it to you. We have 39 senators. 26 of the 39 is 2/3. In the House, we have 105 representatives. 70 is 2/3. He told us he had 28%. As of me sitting in his office before we even decided to even hear the bill that he was moving. And I asked him to work with us, to give us time to try to fix the stuff. And I really hate to admit this, but he did. And that bill was passed the day before the last session. That bill was passed that Sunday, but this is what I want to make sure people understand. When we hit it, we watched the news, as Jason said, we did the internet stuff and all this and that. When we started session, the mayor wanted to get rid of 23 judges. 23. Not just one that we've been in as a release. We wanted to get rid of 23. And we got it down to 9. So the 3 in criminal, that's not the only judges that are gone. We lost 9 judges, but he wanted 23. We have something called warrants in the district attorney's office. What is a warrant? A warrant is the way that the state pays to assist in the. A warrant is $50,000 per warrant. City knows this. We get a phone call Wednesday evening. Session ends Monday. We get a phone call Wednesday evening. Senate President called me, like, I need to talk to you. Like, what's up? You know something wrong at this point because it's 7 o'clock. Like, what's up? I said, man, I met with the governor, and the governor want to take 29 warrants from the DA. Multiply 50,000 by 29. That's over $1 million. Like $1 million, $2 million, some $1 million, whatever it is. We're like, there's no way in the world we can allow that to happen. Because now you're crippling the city. You get rid of 3 judges, and now you want to take over $1 million from the DA. But you say that you want to be tough on crime and fight crime. By the time we work with everybody and work with the leadership and some of our colleagues, We got it down to 10. But that's still 10 too many. That's $500,000 that Jason was in his office. But he wanted 29. So when people, say, oh, they're not working, they're not fighting hard enough, they're not doing this, they're not doing that, have a report as to, well, we noticed that nobody from all these allegations on the Senate, the bills on the floor, nobody objected to them taking 10 more from this. Like, how are we gonna check? We wanted 29 and we worked it down to 10. So at any given point in time, they can take that 10 off the table and go back to 29, and the man said he got 28 votes. That's the reality of what it is that we have to deal with. It's not, this is not something that, is just the easiest thing. You see people, well, you're elected, you get paid all this money, 16 when you get paid. So it ain't, we're not doing this for the money. But those are just three things. Now, I could go on and talk about a whole lot of stuff that happened, but those are three things that I just want to make sure that everybody get an opportunity to understand as it relates to these judges, this redistricting, and this stuff with the district attorney.
Thank you. All right, so our city leaders, y'all aren't off the hook. All right. So kind of piggybacking off of that, there were statements and comments being made that the city council members nor the New Orleans delegation did anything to prevent redistricting or the clerk of court consolidation or the judicial seat reduction. So as it relates to the city council members, do you want to dispel any rumors or false narratives about the work that you did as it relates to positions?
What I would say is the legislative process at times can be very delicate. And, for 2 years, I served as the minority leader on the House side. I was the leader of the Democratic caucus. And sometimes, JP was on the council at the time, but sometimes the council would do things while we were up there that I wish they wouldn't have done. So I approached, I got sworn into the council on January 12th. So I approached these first few months as I'm going to come up to speed on the council, get to know my staff, offer them help and assistance to the legislative delegation, but I'm going to let them do their own thing because they're up there every day. And I trust Jimmy because he's close to everybody. And if they need to make decisions that they think are in the best interest of the city, that's what they're elected to do. And so I just want all of y'all to know that I'm grateful that y'all represent us in Baton Rouge, and it's a thankless job at times, but I didn't want to step on anybody's toes, I thought the way that, especially on the House side, the way the Democrats in the House approached the debate on the clerk of court bill was very moving. I mean, that was a moment watching that debate where we had Democrats from all across the state standing up for the city of New Orleans. That was a moment where I was like, man, I really miss being in Baton Rouge. And hearing the updates and the new revelations as related to the reduction of our judiciary in the city of New Orleans and how it started off so high and we walked away with fewer than 10 judges being eliminated, that sucks, right? We still lost judges, and I think, overall, we have some really good judges in the city of New Orleans. So that's very unfortunate, but like Senator Harris was saying, it could have been more than twice what was actually eliminated. And I respect them enough to say, y'all can work on that, because I know that y'all are gonna get us the best that we can get. Right. And, I want to thank our council president, Morrell, for going, he actually went up to, Jason and I went up to Baton Rouge a few times, but Council President Morrell went up there quite a bit to handle overarching things as it related to the city, talking about funding, talking about the legislation related to sewage and water board. And that's when, you kind of understand your position and what the expectations are. And you work with people whom you trust to do the job that they were sent to do. And so that's kind of how I approach it. Overall, very, tough session. I mean, the news was just awful almost every week. But I'm just proud of the fight that our delegation has. And I know it sucks, like sometimes you do the town hall, you go to the neighborhood meeting, and you're telling them about the good things you did, but you also have to inform them about the bad things. And what I experienced during my 6 years in the legislature was that all of you, the people of the city of New Orleans, just want to know what happened. They want to understand what took place. And that's why this forum is a great idea, because that communication keeps us connected and answers your questions. And hopefully at the end of the day, you join everybody up here in the battle of trying to move the city of New Orleans forward.
Thank you. Councilman Laura.
Yeah, I will tell you that as a legislator, with House and Senate, the most obnoxious and annoying thing is when the council would send us resolutions about what we should be. When you're in the legislature, in the thick of legislative session, when you're dealing with complex negotiations of which many of us cannot fathom, the council or any elected official locally trying to box you in because it's to their political advantage locally does not help legislators, it does not help you as a local elected official to get to better outcomes. Our position going into this term in particular was we sent resolutions when our delegation asked them. So there was an instrument being carried for the city that our delegation was doing, we would send a resolution in support of it. Something else that's very interesting, I think, having so many former legislators on the council, the mayor being a former legislator, as you may have noticed, state of Louisiana, many of our colleagues don't have any love lost votes. And sometimes when council's taking positions on issues that are not essential issues, you could either alienate legislators who really don't have a dog in the hunt by coming out on their bill about their district, or more importantly, you'd be surprised how an ill-placed resolution can galvanize opposition and help people kill things that are important for the city of New Orleans. As you've seen, there is a lot of tension right now between the council and the mayor and the governor and some statewide elected officials. I don't think that tension is going anywhere, which means it's going to be even more important to let our legislators operate independent of that tension, because they're going to have to go into a re-election year, fiscal session, as Senator Harris reminds me, under Governor Edwards, he left with a surplus. They're already at a structural deficit. And what that means is, as someone who survived Bobby Jones, that means you're gonna have a whole gang of people trying to make sure everything in their backyard gets paid for and everything down here doesn't. So if anything, what I suspect is going into the next session, you're gonna have an even quieter council and a quieter mayor, because we cannot take political advantage at the expense of limiting our legislators and what they need to do. So I think that when it comes to the legislative session in particular and instruments up there, we really need to defer to the delegation because they know what's going on more than we.
Senator Dodd.
Yeah, just wanted to, just wanted everybody to keep in mind, in order for the governor to veto $34 million, it means that $34 million was in the budget. So that, when we're looking at work that's been done in Baton Rouge, some of the accomplishments are evident. And that's only a portion of what was accomplished while we were there. But it's a testament that we are working, we can collaborate with the city. We collaborated very well this session, I think, with the city and trying to meet their needs and do things specific to our districts as legislators. Additionally, it kind of illustrates a little bit about the ability to work with some of the more level-headed legislators from the other side of the aisle, right? And if it weren't for this particular figure that's, causing some of the issues, we were bringing money home. We were bringing dollars home, maybe not as much as we wanted, and that's a continuing fight. But I think the actions of the governor is throwing off force, hard work, and legislators, even on the Republican side, that understand the need that New Orleans is part of the state. Its members, its constituents, its voters need services, needs capital outlay for bridges, et cetera, and are willing to work with us, and we passed that budget. Once it's vetoed, it means it was already passed. These are things that both the Senate and the House agreed on for it to get to the governor's desk. So just keep that in mind. There's one individual that's really causing the most problems. I think we all knew that, but just, the idea that we had funds in that were just kind of snatched from us at the very last minute, and you can kind of go to Councilmember Will's point as well.
Any other comments? All right, so thank you all. We appreciate your comments on this. So let's talk a little bit, and I know you've all had this telling us about how the state legislators and our city leaders work together. But one example, and some of you all briefly mentioned it, was the sewage and water. And so if you could please discuss with us how important that was, why it was important, and what type of work had to go into this in order to reach a consensus to give the city more control of the sewage and water.
I'm gonna have to take this one first, because I've been beating my head against the wall with the water for almost a decade. We had tried everything possible under the existing structure to make the sewer water. And we really reached a point in the last 2 or 3 years where we realized structural in the sewer water board had so definitively lost its way that we could not let it continue to exist as it had existed. We had a board that did not believe they were accountable to ratepayers whatsoever. We saw that during the entire Senator Harris was very aware of this, even going back to the fight over the building being wrong. If you would have seen the conversations that Senator Harris and I had with sewage and water board members and C-suite people over how big a problem they didn't think bills were. I had board members tell Senator Harris and I, well, if the bill's off by a couple $100, they can pay it, get a refund. I appreciate that some people, I guess, just live with a money tree in the backyard. But when you are attacking people with fixed incomes in 1-bedroom apartments saying you owe $2,000 for a sewage or water board bill, and you could lose access to water if you need to live, that was a fundamental moment we knew that the sewage and water board just had to do. And I will tell you, despite all of the drama we had going on in this moment, there was a time where the governor and the council and the delegation actually worked together. It was sewage and water board, because there were so many parties out there trying to preserve that status quo. And it took everybody, from the delegation, the governor, the House Senate leadership, to pull in the same direction, because there were so many third parties trying to preserve this institution the way it was. And the fact that your council, your mayor, with the help of the delegation, has control over sewage and water board means fundamental changes can now happen. So you talk about, we have the most bloated C-suite of highly paid executives at the sewage and water board than any agency definitively in the state, possibly in this country. The head of sewage and water board makes $500,000. That's more than the head of all state departments. The only official, public official that makes more than $500,000 a year are LSU football coaches. And I'm gonna tell you, we've fired LSU football coaches for less than the job Randy Gates done in the last. So when we're looking at restructuring the future of sewage and water board, it's about prioritizing your ratepayer dollars to be spent in a way that benefits you, to have a sewage and water board that's accountable to you, and have a sewage and water board that really resembles a city department, because that's what sewage and water board is. In every other city in the state of Louisiana, the public works department. We are the weird city where we have a quasi-state agency that's over whether or not you get water or whether or not the sewer leaves your house. And the closer we can get to having an accountable department that just does its job, and when they do their job,
I think I said this in a video, but like, you know, other people, when it rains, they go outside and enjoy the rain. They go outside and check our car and make sure that the foundation is not eroded and make sure your trash can is not down the street. That's not normal. And our goal, working with our delegation, is to get to a point where when it rains, and God knows it rains here for like 9 months out the year, you can just enjoy it and not have PTSD. So this delegation has been a godsend. We had tremendous things happen on August 1st, and I cannot say enough good things about how we were able to get that cross section.
And just as a follow-up for our council members, for residents who are frustrated with the billing process, with the infrastructure, with the drainage, how does this increased oversight by the city translate to the residents?
Well, the first thing I want to say is, we might go outside to check on our cars and to make sure it's not flooding in our neighborhood, but apparently some of the operators at Sewage and Water Board don't do that. Because during the major flood event we had a week ago, one of the canals outside of the pump station 7 rose 6 feet in 20 minutes. And he didn't notice. Something else I'll say is I believe this was the first year in 3 or 4 years that before the legislative session, the New Orleans delegation had a meeting with the mayor and with 1 or 2 council members. We can't all go because of quorum issues. We hadn't had that in like 3 or 4 years. When Councilmember Hughes and I joined, we had them every year. Then we stopped having them. And so it was tough for the city and the delegation to align efforts when you're not even having that meeting going into session. So that's something that I think we all should be encouraged about. Something else I'm going to shout out, and then I'm going to answer your question. I'm going to do this in a minute. The municipal committee that Representatives Murray and Henry are on, that Chancellor Bowie chaired on the Senate side, is a very powerful committee for the city of New Orleans. I served on that committee for 6 years. One of the bills that I passed related to Sewage and Water Board to put it into those estimated bills ran through that exact committee. I also passed legislation to make it easier for the city council to deal with blight and graffiti in our neighborhoods. That went through the municipal committee. So that committee is very important. Unfortunately, the way Sewage and Water Board was structured, everything that we wanted to do related to Sewage and Water Board had to go through that committee, which means we really had one shot every year to make any changes that we wanted to make related to Sewage and Water Board. With the recently passed legislation that goes into effect next week, the council now has the authority to make those changes whenever we determine that those changes need to be made. So when Sewage and Water Board says the rates aren't enough money for us to do the job that we need to do, we can open up their books. We can see what they're spending money on. We can see how much their contracts are for. We can see if they've done a competitive bid on their contracts to see if they're getting the best rate, to see if they're getting quality work being performed, and then we can make a decision. So this can be a game changer as it relates to the work product, the consistency that we start to see from Sewage and Water Board moving forward. Look, it's government, it's not going to change overnight, but this opens the door for us to start making that continual progress that Sewage and Water Board needs to make, and that everybody in the city of New Orleans deserves to see.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman.
One quick thing I want to add, so you asked about like what benefit you could see from ordinance from the changes at the state level. First bill we did together, Senator Harris, Representative Hilfrey and I, the Sewage and Water Board, beginning of last term, done with billing. And one thing the council did working with the legislature is we actually took billing away from the Sewage and Water Board and hired a third party called HGI to literally allow you to take over their customer service. When you make a complaint about a bill, the third party evaluates. They wrote off $21 million in bad debts. Because these bills were either so bad, as in like your bill was 3,000% off. There were bills they being tied to living people from dead ancestors. Just the sewage and water board mentality at the time was they would report outstanding receivables, these bad bills, to agencies saying, look how much money we can go get just like that. And part of the challenge we had was anybody who runs a business knows you've got good receivables and you got bad ones. And if you know you have a bad claim, if somebody owes you money and they're dead, the likelihood their grandchildren will pay that bill is 0%. The likelihood you can legally get the money is 0%. So when we brought HGI in, they started telling us, we're water board, prove this bill is a good bill. $21 million in bad bills that were hanging over residents like the sword of Damocles to cut off your water. So that's the one thing. We had a 2-year period to get in on that, and we fixed it. As Councilmember Willard said, we're just getting started on everything. You're not going to see it get fixed overnight. But if you give us time, we can bring that level of relief, accountability, and transparency to the whole process, because that is what's going to take. Right now, the sewer and water board's approval rate amongst you is 14%. They have a millage that they need to pass next year to keep fixing the streets. Something I've been telling them for 4 years, you need to be real concerned how people feel about you because people pay for you. And so we're really at this point trying to help sewer and water board save itself. Because I don't know if the current structure, if any of us would be okay with a new millage to give them money.
I mean, look, I think my colleagues covered it. The biggest takeaway, I think, for the residents to understand why this bill is so important. You'll now have a sewage and water board answering to an elected body, people that you elect. Right now, they answer to a board that is not elected. And there's no offense to anybody that serves on that board, but the bottom line is, you know, for us, by the time an issue gets to us, it's because you probably called sewage and water board and tried, and now you're just desperate. So you come to us. Here's the reality. We have no authority to do anything outside of business. We literally cannot make sewage and water board do anything outside of business. Under the law right now until August 1st, the only thing we can do, which we have done since this council has been in office, January 12th, we can summon them to the council. We can grill the heck out of them, which I know you've seen that. But you know what they have an obligation to do after all of our questions? Nothing. They have zero obligation. So now there's going to be a new level of accountability. I give you an example. January 11th, they told us, Councilmember McCarron is present. She's like, my district is underwater. She's desperate. She said Lakeview is underwater. Hollywood is underwater. Carrollton, help, what's going on? You know what they said? Oh, we just got a lot of rain. Everything's working. Well, Tornado Morel and Hurricane Houston touchdown. And all of a sudden it shifted from everything's working fine to, oh, never mind, we changed our story. It was human error. Yeah. But had we not probed and had we not pressed, I guarantee you they would have stuck to that narrative. So as I've said, August 1st is going to be a new day in a new way. And I can guarantee you, while you may not see it overnight, you are going to see movement in short order, because that is what this council has proven to you in these 6 short months.
And I want to ask our state representative a question. It's not about sewage and water board, but about, we talked a little bit about collaboration and compromise and partnerships and building those relationships. And just specifically to you all, how is that, what type of partnerships and collaboration is important to the work that you're doing? And explain to us how that works in the house.
Well, like my successful stuff, since he's trying to quiet.
I'll give a specific example, in terms of collaboration with a colleague in the House, representative from St. Bernard Parish, Representative Bayham, and I speak regularly because part of his district abuts the furthest part east of my district, the District 100 in East Niles and Village de l'Est. We have four bridges right now that are inoperable, on Highway 90 Chef Pass, past the East Niles. That is a major evacuation route. Once I-10 going east is clogged, and we have to evacuate. He and I speak probably once every 2 weeks, and we get updates from Secretary Glenn Leday and Deputy Secretary Greg Cormier, and try to figure out how we can expedite the process of federal dollars coming to the city, to the state, so that we can get those bridges open quickly. It is truly a life or death matter if we cannot expedite the opening of those bridges between Louisiana and Mississippi so we can evacuate safely. So that's one example of the collaboration that we've done with colleagues in the House outside of the Democratic representation you see at the table. The other example I'll give is with the City Council and the Mayor. Again, economic development is a major issue in New Orleans East, and we have worked collaboratively to figure out where there are properties, working to figure out where there are properties that can be developed. And what are some business development strategies that can come into place so we can really develop New Orleans and surrounding Jordan Valley, as well as the aerospace activities at NASA. So there is collaboration. There is no success without teamwork and collaboration. And I think I can tell you from my time being here on the state representative that there are lots of teamwork initiatives that are happening. It feels like we are going in the right direction with everybody going towards the same common goal, but yet staying in our lanes as representatives and council members to make sure that we check all the boxes we need to as representatives and as council members.
Thank you, Representative Murray.
To kind of piggyback off what Representative said, we do work in tandem all the time. Oftentimes with people that you wouldn't expect, people that vote against the world all the time. Sometimes, occasionally, do help. Phrases it may sound. Oftentimes, they don't put a name on it because they know they have a public persona to dislike the world and be very far right and all this type of stuff. But behind it, they'll come and say, "Hey, how will this affect the world? If it's going to affect the world in a negative way, that's not what I'm looking for. We can put an exception in." Et cetera. I don't want to say any names and give y'all stories to people that have helped us kind of behind the closed doors. But we do work with folks all the time who sometimes don't agree with us day to day, but actually do care from time to time what's happening here in New Orleans. Absolutely. Council, we've been lockstep with the mayor. They've been super helpful. That perfect time resolution that somebody brought up earlier, that Sewage and Water Board one was exactly that. I haven't been up there very long, but if you bring a resolution, it really can't hurt us. And if you bring, that was a perfect timeline, and I'm very thankful to the council for that.
Then Representative Bennett, you could tell us a little bit about how important compromise and collaboration has been for you.
Yes, I think collaboration is really the secret sauce of success at the legislature. I think as we stated earlier, we have very limited numbers. So you're not going to pass anything with just Democratic votes. So a lot of that is just about relationship building, going around and talking to your colleagues while you're on the House floor, going to the Pentagon and just kind of kicking it with your colleagues from North Louisiana and just kind of getting to know their stories better. When you're at conferences, getting to know them better, and just creating and delving deeper into those relationships so that you can go to them the next session and be like, hey, I really need your vote on this, or I really need your vote on that. And really creating a relationship with your chairman and chairwoman as well. So all those things really do help, and it truly is a secret sauce to legislate.
Judge, I wanted to say one thing on that, really quickly, because we're unfortunately living in a very hyper-partisan environment. And at some point, it's my prayer that sooner rather than later, cooler heads prevail, where we can get back to the days where people agree to disagree, fight hard, debate hard, but can still treat each other with respect. And then I'm hopeful that we're going to get back. But I can tell you, I see again from the Facebook and social media analysts, where these legislators get a lot of criticism. It's like, oh, y'all weak because y'all go work with Republicans. They're in the super minority. So we have to decide, do you want them to go to Baton Rouge and be loud? Or do you want them to go to Baton Rouge and be effective? Now, if you want them to just go and be loud and not bring home any bacon or pass anything, then that's fine. Well, I live in in District 100, but if I have an ineffective representative, we're gonna vote him out. So the reality is, he has to work with people who may not look like him and think like him. So we've got to take a deep breath and stop this notion that if they work across the house, somehow they are. The bottom line is, the only way they're gonna pass anything is to work with people who don't think like them. And JP and Willard can tell you all, we passed, go look at our legislative track record, go look at Jimmy Harris's legislative track record. It was people who don't think like us, who come from a different party with different ideology. I say, because I respect you, because I like you, I may not like your bill, but I'm gonna help you. That is how the legislative process works. So we've got to stop putting this unnecessary pressure on our Democratic leaders that somehow if you go work with Republicans, you're an antichrist. That is foolish.
So before we wrap up, I do want to say thank you, because I think it's important, the information we learned today. Hold on. before I do that. All right, send that.
Listen, Tracy. You know,
You were my mentor.
but I don't think a lot of saying, but this is, we have to work across the aisle with the Antichrist. I can't believe we work with Republicans, blah, blah, blah. I'll just say from the city standpoint, again, as I said, everything in the legislature works with the people. So we have 39 senators. We have 11 Democrat senators, right? In order for me to say my name is Jimmy Harris, I have to have 20 votes. So that means I have to go out and get 9 Republicans for me to say that my name is Jimmy Harris. That's not considering that all of the Democrats might be on board with me saying that my name is Jimmy Harris. So that means I have to go out and get more than 9 just to make sure I cover the spread that's just in case. If it's something that deals with money, I have to get 26. It's 11. So I don't have the luxury or the choice to say, because he's a Republican, she's a Republican, I'm not a Republican, not a Republican. I mean, that's foolishness.
Right.
You know, and it's downright stupidity if you don't be there. You know, let us be something straightforward. You know, call me what you want, you know, say this, that, say, you know, say whatever. But have that same energy and have that same feeling when we work as it relates to the sewage and water program to get $39 million addition for this energy station that we have, so that we can have reliable energy in case Entergy loses power. They'll have their own problems. You know, call us ineffective, call us whatever it is, call us sellouts. When we get an additional 9.5 million for something that this council has for as it relates to sewage and water program, that's a spec brand new project. Get new projects in the bill right now is another, but we didn't. But in order for us to do it, we gotta talk to that Senate president, that's a Republican. That Speaker of the House, that's a Republican. That Chairman of Reverend Fisk, that's a Republican. That Chairman of Ways and Means, that's a Republican. This governor, that's a Republican. Who's doing this stuff, as we see with the city, where he understands how important this is to us, to where he'll be the person, as JP know, when we had to meet with him, we met with his staff along with the mayor, and we talked about the sewage and water relation. I know we keep talking about sewage and water and this, that, but understanding how important this is. The bill that was passed was a bill by Stephanie Hilton. We have something called substitute bills. The way the bill was drafted, the governor's office, they didn't like how it was initially drafted. That's what they said. And Councilman Morrell said, you know what, we're gonna do what we gotta do to draft the bill to make it better. So that we can give y'all authority. Now, but I don't think that people understand is this. There's always this notion, and there's always been the same for these past couple of years, that this governor, he says that he and his administration is trying to take over everything the city. Yeah. He said that. I mean, he said when he first got elected, he wanted to put his foot on it, and bend more to his will. But guess what he did in that JP Taylor from? He said, you know what, this what y'all, I'm gonna give y'all what y'all want. And we're gonna draft this bill to make it to where what y'all want is what you all see. So I'm going to concede power to give you all what it is that you want. Now that, I'm not making this up, I'm telling you what this man did. And what he did, when he explained certain stuff, so that he's been a former chairman of Red West and start talking about numbers and talking about this and talking about that, how this can save and how that can save here, that can do this and that can do that. That's a whole different perspective. And he's, in that particular bill, he conceded power to the mayor and to the council, and to the council in particular. So, again, when we have these conversations, we hear these people, saying, oh, I can't believe they work for you, but I can believe you're talking to them, this and that. Well, look, I'm just gonna tell you, I'm gonna keep it. And I just say this, it's been effective for me for 11 years. Yeah. And it's been very effective for me for 11 years. Yeah. And anybody that go to the legislative process, they know when you get sworn in. And if you get sworn in, when the president gets sworn in, they have 3 people. One person has to nominate the person, another person has to second, and the third person has to close. As it relates to the president, the same thing on the House side. But I can tell you, I was the person that seconded the motion, the Cameron would be the Senate president, a Black Democrat from the West. So you can say whatever it is you want to say, but everybody up here and anybody in that building will tell you I'm one of the most effective people in the country. All right. We have ways, everybody up here, and I it's the good and the bad, with Jason and Matthew and Jay. I know just how effective they were, in that group, and I have the ability to work with Representative Murray, Representative Mary, and I see just how great work that they're actually doing. But, for us, doing our job, man, I'm going to
I was supposed to go real short. What I find interesting, when we passed 90 managers requiring a supermajority in both houses, we were able to make history because it took 13 years of me building relationships with the Republicans to do something that was to the benefit and undoing Jim Crow in the state of Louisiana. And I want to think something that's very telling. And I say this because I have 2 colleagues, Representative Willard, Representative Hughes, now council members. I want you to pay attention to this exercise. There is one thing as legislators we hate, and it's when somebody does no work and takes credit for your work. And I will tell you something that I've gotten much better at, because I'm much more, they're just getting older and I care with this. The same people who will ridicule and attack a Jimmy Harris, a JP Morrell, a Matt Willard, or a Jason Hughes for getting the votes from Republicans to pass the bill will then take credit for that bill. Now think about that for a second. They can't pass the bill. They're making fun of their colleagues for talking to Republicans, but when they run for office, they sure will take credit for the bill that took Republicans voted for and passed. And I say that because the people of the city of New Orleans, people of the country, they are not dumb, they want results. That's why Congress has got so low ratings, because they're not accomplishing anything. At the end of the day, what we need in a legislature, when we have this delegation, is people who give us results. And we as a society, as a community, need to judge people by their results. Because when you fall for these honeyed words of people telling you, oh, they're gonna fight so-and-so, they'll get y'all a fight too. You can't do both. As Jimmy said earlier, you can go up there and pick every fight in the world, beat your chest and feel great about it, walk back and Senator say thing. Did that feel good? You came back and the lesson you started. That's what senators tell me all the time. There are still people in this legislature who that is their modus operandi. They will go down there
and cost the city more money to get a social media post, to get a whole bunch of high fives from the Instagram MDs and the social commentators, but the same people will be complaining when we ain't got no money. Judge legislators, judge councilors, judge elected officials by what they accomplished, not by beating their chest. Because when we're looking at the resources this community needs, the needs that we have to protect the things we have, that's relationships and work. It is far easier to tear something down and build it up. And this is a delegation of people led by Senator Harris that are building things up, and that is way harder than tearing stuff down.
I think that this is a fitting time for us to just say thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Being here this evening and giving us this debriefing. I think it's important, and you're giving us the message that we can take back into the community.
Yeah.
Now, before we wrap up, I do want to talk a little bit about the future, right? Looking ahead, because we've talked about it was a rough session. And we appreciate you all really kind of giving us the truth about this. But let's talk about looking ahead. I want to ask each of you, if you can talk to us a little bit about what your priorities are for the city or in your respective positions, working ahead. And how, as a community, what can we do as we move forward? What's the charge that you give to us? And so we'll start with Senator Harris, and you each have 2 minutes.
First thing I would say is for everybody out here, anybody who tell me to break the rules. As long as we need to break it this time. Between now and the next session, I can just tell you what I'll be doing. I'll be working with my colleagues. I'll be working with this crazy government to try to make sure that whatever could possibly be coming down the pipe to hurt the roads and animals. Just be honest. Some of the things that I know many up here know, we just came out of the session, as mentioned earlier, we had a $33 billion in vetoes and things to various areas. Between now and then, we work to make sure we get that money back. And at this point, everyone that's up there, in particular, I said, Councilman Barrera for certain amount of time they did. Next year is the fiscal session, which means that next year we're gonna be talking about taxes. Next year, we have Republican that they hate to hear the word tax. So guess what has to happen? In order for anything to move, they'll have to have some conversations with us. So we now are in a different light than we were this particular year. Because we will have the phone calls, as you all know, we'll have the phone calls, and we call it the full floor, that's what the government calls. We'll have the phone calls, you'll ask to get the staff to come, they'll ask us to come and meet with them. And then they'll sit there and they'll tell us about how they need this and how they need that. And then we'll sit there, they'll tell them what we need and what it is that we want, and we'll have another compromise. It is what it is. The legislature is very, very transactional. This government is very transactional. So, again, for me, between now and then, working to try to restore as much of the stuff that was cut that I can. And get the head of exactly the next session that we're going into.
Thank y'all for coming out. Thank you, voters, east of the industrial canal, for putting this together. As you know, the role of the council is different from the legislature, so we don't really get that break between sessions. We go all year round. So my priorities for the rest of the year are really going to be focused around economic development, improving the quality of life and affordability issues to the city of New Orleans. Today at the council meeting, I dropped an ordinance to have reporting requirements as it relates to NOPD's new drone as a first responder program. For the sake of transparency, if we're going to start using more drone for law enforcement purposes, I think NOPD needs to be as transparent as possible with that. So I'm working with NOPD on that. pilot agreements, payments in lieu of taxes. We get a ton of those coming before the city council. I understand it as a valuable tool for economic development and for affordable housing, but it comes at a cost. And if this council and the mayor's administration wants to develop vacant properties throughout the city of New Orleans, that's great. But we can't do it by putting a pilot agreement on every piece of parcel that is undeveloped in the city of New Orleans. So I'm working with Council President Burrell's office on some language to configure how we do pilots in the city of New Orleans. I'm also working on some economic development stuff since I chair that committee. Totally just blanked out. So, obviously, we'll be working on the Switch Water Board stuff to make sure that we're ready to go. And we're careful about, the new authority that we take on, of the budget. That was the other thing I wanted to talk about. So the approval we were going to request from the bond commission was for $110 million. $110 million. We won't get that money anymore. So going into the 2027 budgeting process is going to start in September, but in the meanwhile, we have to figure out how we're going to make it through before we get to that 2027 budget. So we're going to have a lot of tough conversations. We're going to really have to look at what the priorities are as it comes to the city's dollars, so we can have the smallest impact possible and make sure that we take care of what's most important. So that's probably some of the biggest things on my radar.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So I get a question a lot out in the public, how was your first session? It was a doozy, right? So I just want to say, thanks to my colleagues on the House and Senate side that are here tonight for making what was a pretty rough go for my first session. At least have the feeling of some reward that we worked hard, we did our best. We fought when we needed to fight, and we collaborated when we needed to collaborate. I think I will continue to do that until next session. We will all work together on some of the things that we already have on the table, and then we'll obviously put some effort towards the new issues, new agenda items that we can focus on in terms of bills, following bills. And then additionally, in terms of appropriation, trying to get funds that we lost, returning that to the city, and then seeking new appropriation and things that we need to fund. I would also like to say that, I plan to combine what I'm doing leading the session and how you can help as well. This group doesn't really need the speech, right? You all always show up. I know a lot of you from these different kind of forums when I ran our race, which was right, just yesterday. So I know you all engaged, but we need to widen the tent. And I know I'm speaking to folks that already know that, but we need to widen the tent. And so I plan to do some of that in this off season and, really just engage with voters. We're going to have some planning right now. And I'll, charge some of the folks on this stage to join me. We're gonna reach out, okay? And then I think 145,000 registered Democrats, 45,000 in the state, 45,000 individuals last. I just need one more second. 45,000 voted in the last governor's election. So we got 100,000 on the table that are just sitting out there. So we have to engage them. And again, this group is super engaged, and I appreciate you all for that. So I just want to say thank you for that. More to come, and more news will be out there in terms of when we're able to schedule, organize, and promote events. But we do plan to reach out and get voters involved in the process so that when the next election, we can have a better outcome than we have now, and someone that's really willing to and excited about collaborating with this city that does so much for the state, all around the state, and not just ourselves. We support the state of Louisiana, and so we need to have someone that's willing to work with us. So that's my plans. Yes. And then, as a matter of fact, I think all of us are going to be up for re-election. and the governor at the same time. So that's the race I'm focused on. It's not about, I want to engage people to vote in that election. That's what this is really about, you know.
Councilman Moore.
Thank you. I want to thank those who suggested for now for having this. It's very important for us to engage people where they are. I can tell you my number one priority probably through this year, the term is just budget. As Councilman Willard said, not being able to get that grant, that loan that we are entitled to, like any other city where we take a loan to do a gap fund, like any other city, and repay like any other city, not having that available is going to lead to very tough decisions. There will be a council meeting in the next week and a half where we're going to have the administration present their plan for getting to the end of the year, but it's going to be tough. We're going to get there, but it's going to be tough. Like many of my colleagues just said, the vote is the most important thing. For those of you who don't know, there will be a charter amendment on the ballot that we passed last year that deals with how you budget in the city of New Orleans. The reason why we're in this predicament as a city in our budget is because, as y'all know, all of you participate or watch the budget process where the city of New Orleans, the council and mayor create a budget. What you don't know is the budget's a giant discussion. Under the charter, once we create the budget, the mayor can move all the money around. And they are not required to come back to the council or publicly explain how the money is moved around. And basically, on most good years, the numbers add up, so there's no real problem. Last year, the numbers didn't add up by $134 million. And that's why we were in a budget shortfall where this whole year, all the workers were full of everything else. The charter amendment before you changes the budget process fundamentally. It makes our budget process like the state budget process. When the council and mayor craft a budget under this charter amendment and we create it, it's locked. The money for the Department of Sanitation, the money for X is for X, for Y is for Y. And mayors can move the money. We always have flexibility, but you have to come back to the council and the public meeting and say, well, I'm moving money for sanitation. What are we not paying for in sanitation? Having that ability locked in will prevent what happened last year from ever happening again. For me, I'm a policy wonk. I want to fix things on a fundamental level. So when I go back to being a citizen like you, I'm not staring at the council being like, oh, we lost $134 million. I will never happen again. As Senator Bartholomew said, I want you to remember something. In the party primaries for Senate, more Democrats voted than Republicans in the original party primary. Hear me on this. Democrats are actually, for the first time in registered voters, outnumbered by Republicans, but more Democrats voted than Republicans. Why is that? Because, believe it or not, anger gets you to the polls more than love does. What I want to remind all of you is, all of you is that politicians pay attention to voters.
Yeah.
There is going to be a Senate election this fall. There's also going to be a constitutional amendment, Mr. Harrison, I'm correct, to bar John Bel Edwards from running for governor. It would send a tremendous message to the current governor if that amendment failed. It would also send a message to every possible challenger that people are interested in choice. So it's very important, not just to vote on things like this important charter of the city of New Orleans, but just to vote in general because voters pay attention. When voters pay attention, politicians get scared. Just please vote, please vote.
Yes.
Representative.
And thank you so much to everybody who came out this evening. I truly appreciate y'all. I think the number one thing that's very important that I've learned throughout my tenure in the House of Representatives is that we need numbers. And I'm not going to belabor the point with you all because I know you all are very active voters. But we have a lot of districts throughout our state that are 40% Black that could potentially be flipped from R to B. So yeah, y'all going to vote here, great, but we need to get activated and find a way that we can catch buses out to these districts or something, or if you ain't got the time, you should treasure to help these candidates that are gonna be running against these Republicans, because if we can't get our numbers up, it's all gonna be for naught, to be honest with you. So I'm on a committee on our House Democratic caucus that we're trying to figure out recruiting candidates and trying to figure out how we're actually gonna be helping those candidates win. There is a seat that's gonna be coming open in Kenner that we're trying to find a potential candidate for right now. So we have to pay attention to these seats that are outside of Orleans Parish, because that's where we need to be effective. So we gotta start talking to our country cousins and whatever parish, 'cause we gotta get activated with them as well. And on a district specific level, you know, I'm looking at the rain right now, and like the big thing for my district is like flooding in Howard Road. And there's this project that man, it's crazy. Like it's basically Monticello Canal culverts that would actually help get the water outside of that area of Hollywood Road faster whenever it's raining, because Hollywood always floods. So it got taken out of the budget, and I was able to help with the help of Senator Harris, get it back in the budget. Now, you know, I have to talk to the Commissioner of Administration, because they're about to maybe strike it from the budget again, because unfortunately it's a pretty old project and we haven't been moving on it. So if you don't move on a project after a certain number of years, they threaten to take it away. But I did speak to the Commissioner of Administration while I was up there, let them know that, you know, we're still pushing for the project. So that's really gonna be my main concern, to ensure that gets across the finish line. So appreciate y'all again.
Thank you.
All right.
Councilman Hughes.
Thank you, Judge, again, a chance, so thank you, for getting hosting this and always exhibit Industrial Canal. Let me thank you all for, braving rain to you. Before I get into my closing remarks, I owe a debt of gratitude to my family. And I see my mother and I see my godfather here. I have done a horrible job at finding balance in this job. I have missed a lot of family events. Fred, who works with me, can tell you I give a lot of 18-hour days. And I just thank the love of my family for having my back, praying for me and with me. And my extraordinary district community. You know, I tell people all the time, people say politics is a long journey. I've never felt the loneliness that often comes with this job, because I have so many loving, praying people. So I really appreciate that. My priorities as we move forward, in a very short term, obviously District E, it's our time. It's time for us to get our fair share. And I know sometimes I can be a little relentless, a little bit of a maniac. And I'm not gonna apologize for it. Whatever it takes to get it done, I'm gonna do that. But I really am grateful to our mayor, who has been an extraordinary partner. And I could have not asked the two better brothers partners than JP Morrell and Matthew Willard, who have always been in those trenches with me to deliver for the East and Lord Night War. So we're gonna keep fighting. But outside of that, top priority, ladies and gentlemen, hate to be the dead horse, the budget. Nothing else matters if we don't get this budget right. We can talk about all the priorities in the world, but we've got to get this budget right. In order to get it right, Council President is right, it's gonna be painful. I wish I could tell you it's gonna be both. This is going to be painful. We are gonna have a tough, honest conversation about what our priorities are, and that's where we're gonna have to invest. And unfortunately, the reality is we're gonna have to disinvest. And that's not gonna be pretty. Good news for me is JP and Matt, we remember how it felt when 300 people descended with the yellow shirts, right? A lot of tears. I mean, it tugs at your heart. But we're gonna have to tell a lot of people no. But we're gonna have to prioritize what's important to the residents in order to improve quality of life. So we're gonna do it. We're gonna meet the moment. I'm excited about it. What can the public do? Sure. I'm proud, my community shows up. I look around this room, roughly 50% of this district residents, so District P always shows up, but seriously. As we tackle this budget, regardless of what part of the city you live in, don't trust that we're gonna get it right. Show up. Show up and make it clear to us what you expect us to do. And if we veer off track, you all have the power to get us back on track. So it is imperative, ladies and gentlemen, that you follow this budget process and that you show up every step of the way and hold our feet to the fire to ensure that we get this right. And then the final thing I would say on a good closing note, I know that we are living in some very challenging times, especially. But I don't want you all to lose hope. Pendulum always swings. God still sits high, looks low, and the sun will rise again. God bless you.
Representative Hurd.
Yeah, one of the things I'm looking forward to the most, is that I passed a study about the financial impact of, the last week of the session. I purposely waited to the last week of the session because I think we all agree in this room that we probably don't get what we deserve. If I'm throwing a party and I provide venue, I provide drinks, food, and music, and all you bring is ice, you probably don't want to talk about you bring what to the party. But you know, as a place, what we bring to the party has been a vital topic of discussion. So I'm looking forward to that and helping using that study to help recoup some of our funds. I think it's a very important future of the world. One other thing that I am really looking forward to this summer is getting folks out, and you're going to keep hearing me say, getting us involved, getting us active. We have a ton of people from 33 years old, the second youngest person in the house. There's a ton of people that are Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, whatever, Facebook warriors. They have all these comments. You hear the barbershop, you hear the beauty salon, you hear the nail salon. But you ask them, when's the last time they go there because they go around? There's all these comments. And if you hate to get in the job every day, I hate to get a job every day, go hit the buttons. And another thing I will ask, while we are in amongst family, so many of us have left New Orleans, still care about them, live in surrounding areas, and say, well, I can't do nothing because I don't live in New Orleans. You need to hold your representatives, your senators accountable, because there are folks that are right there in Metairie, right there in Chalmette, Redmond, etc., who behind closed doors, they're on our team, but you know where they always put a button for them. It's always against us. So I have been trying to get folks to hold their representatives, their senators accountable outside of the state.
Thank you. And last, certainly not, it's Representative Hicks.
Thank you, Judge, and thank you to voters east of the industrial canal for the forum tonight. This has been a great conversation, a conversation that I know many of us needed to have and wanted to have, so I'm glad that it did happen. Hopefully this will not be the last conversation. Hopefully we can meet again as family and talk about how we can continue to serve you all and how you can support us as well. In terms of district priorities, as I mentioned earlier, New Orleans East, specifically District 100, is uniquely situated with a lot of land that is surrounded by industry. And we have to make sure that we tap into that land and those assets, not just for the benefit of New Orleans East, because I do believe that a rising tide really does lift our boats. If we can get the land in New Orleans East redeveloped to support aerospace engineering activities at NASA, to support the port activities that's going to come out of the Louisiana International Terminal in terms of transportation and logistics when it is fully open and developed, those jobs that will be generated will benefit not only New Orleans East, but the city. We're talking about significantly increasing the tax base. That increased tax base in New Orleans East will also help the rest of the city's residents who also pay taxes as well. So I will be laser focused to make sure that this task force that will convene no later than September 15th is completed according to the instrument by March the 1st of 2027. In addition to that, as Representative Murray and Ben and my other colleagues have mentioned, We just have to get the vote out, now. We have to focus on getting candidates in office at the state level next year to make sure that we can get a candidate for governor and other cities and other seats that will give us at least, we haven't gotten any justice this session. Can we just get a little mercy at this point? That's really what we need. We need a candidate that will give us an open door policy, listen, and vote with us or support us with some compassion and empathy. Because what I saw this session was no compassion and no empathy. I was told when a vote went down to create homelessness, at the same time, create homelessness in the city of New Orleans and the state of Louisiana, while we're producing judges that would have to adjudicate those matters. And I brought it to that representative's attention. The representative who pushed the homelessness bill said, we'll figure it out. So it's not solution driven like many of us are trying to focus on. You all, things are being done simply because they can be done, not because they're supposed to be done. So we need to focus on getting candidates and getting our folks out to vote so that these numbers can shift from 2/3 majority Republican to at least 50% or 45% Democrats, so we can block the supermajority votes that we've been subject to this last legislative session. So those are my priorities at the district level, continuing to register people to vote at the statewide level, and continuing to work with some of my colleagues to identify some viable candidates in other parishes as well, that we can actually get the numbers in our favor so that we can pass legislation to make everyone's life in this region state a better place to live. Thank you.
Evening, I want to say thank you to each of these panelists for taking time out of your schedule and sharing with us this evening. I also want to say thank you to the voters east of the Industrial Canal for having me as moderator in this conversation. And of course, to Chancellor Rudy and Suno for having and hosting us this evening. As we mentioned earlier, I think each of the panelists is going to reserve a few minutes, y'all, because we've been here 2 hours. Just a few minutes for any one-on-one, but just, let's give it quick because you guys are busy. But if you have anything that you need to talk to them about one-on-one in the first one. All right, so thank you for having me.
Thank you.